The ACLU was beyond belief.
They've done such good work.
Very, very important work.
ACLU takes on things issue by issue, always fighting for the Constitution, always fighting for our civil rights. And you get down to it, there's really nothing more patriotic than that.
They help us. They help us keep that hope. And hope is so important.
This year marks 6 decades since the ACLU of Utah began protecting the civil rights and liberties of all people in our state. Since 1958, we have advocated for immigrant and refugee rights, fought for LGBTQ and gender equality, preserved our privacy, stood up for rights of the accused, and have safeguarded the fundamentals that make our participatory democracy possible. In the 1960s, our affiliate was still new, but that didn't stop us from jumping right in to fight injustice throughout the state. We were small but mighty. On the Hill, volunteer lawyers lobbied the state legislature to guarantee equal access to public accommodations. In the courtroom, they fought to protect the rights of students who protested the Vietnam War. They also successfully challenged racially motivated police sweeps of marginalized communities. In the 1970s, Utah bookstores and theaters became the targets of government censorship. The ACLU of Utah stepped in, refusing to allow attacks on free speech to go unchallenged. We have litigated numerous First Amendment cases throughout the years and find it to be an especially important cause amid the current political climate.
My name is Patrick DeFreitas. I founded my bookstore in 1977. There's always somebody in power who doesn't like what's being said about them. I quickly discovered that some people didn't want me selling certain books. And that was probably what hooked me initially into the ACLU of Utah. They were ready to defend my right to sell books that were appropriate, defend my right to essentially say things that might be unpopular. Because book selling and publishing are freedom of speech issues. And that's what the ACLU does, defend the right to freedom of speech. If you can't say what you need to say, and people can't hear what you've got to say, there is a closing down of the American mind. The ACLU's job is to think this through and come up with those fair and reasonable resolutions that enable everyone to feel heard and to feel empowered.
In the late 70s and through the 80s, the ACLU of Utah brought several important issues to the public's attention. The growing organization fought to protect equal treatment of female and male teachers in schools. It also litigated against Salt Lake County for overcrowding jails and the lack of mental health facilities available in them. However, the most hot-button issue was the fight to end the death penalty. We were unable to stop the execution of Gary Gilmore, the first inmate to be executed in the U.S. following a 10-year moratorium on the death penalty. This turned into a decades-long battle, and we look forward to the day when capital punishment is abolished in Utah, hopefully during the next legislative session.
I'm a Republican. I came from a very conservative part of the state, so I just knew that the ACLU worked for the devil. That's all I really knew. Mostly I sat across the table from the ACLU at the beginning, and I was always very impressed with the concerns that the organization had and how it conducted itself. The more I looked into it, the more I worked with Marina and ACLU and other folks, I realized that there's a lot wrong with the death penalty, and I kind of caught fire on it. I believe I called Marina and asked her if the ACLU was active on death penalty issues, and she said, well, as a matter of fact, we are. A lot of organizations in Utah could learn from the path the ACLU has trod over the last 2 decades. In 2001, when I entered the legislature, I didn't think I would ever be saying this, but the ACLU makes a huge difference on the Hill, makes a huge difference in Utah, makes us a much better state.
At the approach of the new millennium, the Utah affiliate was no longer the smallest branch of the ACLU. The organization began taking on cases related to reproductive rights and LGBTQ equality. In the late 90s, we championed teacher and volleyball coach known then as Wendy Weaver, now as Wendy Chandler, against Nebo School District. The school district removed Wendy from her volleyball position simply because she came out as gay. Wendy had written to 25 employment lawyers, but none would take her case. Finally, she turned to us, and we were ready to fight for her.
I started working in 1979 as a PE teacher at Spanish Fork High School. In '95, at that time I was married, and I think I realized at that time that I could no longer not be who I was. The principal called me in, and he just told me he wasn't going to reassign me to coaching this year. And I said, why? And of course I knew, but I asked him why. He said, we just think this is the best interest of the students and the staff at the school, that you not coach again. The ACLU was beyond belief wonderful. They shouldered everything. They actually allowed me to continue living my life. And with that support around, and I couldn't say thank you enough to the ACLU for what they did.
We continued to forge new ground in Utah as our fight for freedom of speech and our advocacy of LGBTQ equality converged in one case. When community member and activist Bino Solomon was denied a license plate with a gay positive message, we knew we had to act. The lawsuit made the national news.
I thought, I want every kid and every parent in this state to know that there's a mom who thinks it's okay that their kid is gay, that they're okay with it. So I applied for the plate. They denied me. I reapplied, they denied me. Because I was on the board of the Pride Center, I called the executive director at that point, Valerie Larrabee, and said, who's the best civil rights attorney in the country? And she said, just walk across the street. Because the Pride Center used to be, you share the same driveway with them. And I asked the ACLU if they would take the case. I'm told that they had a midnight email conference and there was 100% agreement that they wanted to take the case. And as you know, the rest is history. The ACLU, as you all know, doesn't take pro bono cases. It takes cases that set precedent. So the ACLU just does important, very, very important work.
Throughout our history, we have long held racial justice, equal protection, and immigrant rights to be important areas of focus. In 2010, police officers conducted a gang sweep at West High School during school hours. They detained and interrogated dozens of students of Latino, African American, or Pacific Islander descent based on alleged gang affiliation. None of the students detained had committed a crime. We sued, and we won. We made sure that these unconstitutional police practices were never enforced again. In 2011, we fought against racial profiling and attacks on immigrant rights when the state legislature passed the Show Me Your Papers law. This legislation would have allowed law enforcement to demand papers demonstrating citizenship or immigration status during traffic stops. This was unconstitutional, and we were not going to let it happen.
Racism caused me to become more and more active and more vocal. I joined many different groups that were fighting for civil rights. ACLU was always kind of in the background there, ready to help. We had just a gang of anti-immigration laws come out of the state legislature, which included the ones that we fought against through the ACLU. It would have been very difficult without the ACLU. They provided the legal work, they provided the format, and they provided the training that's necessary. Our government has been really guilty of passing laws based on fear, almost fear as an instrument of immigration reform, which is really ugly if you stop and think about it. So of course we fought that, and ACLU aided us, and without them we couldn't have won that case.
In 2014, we jumped into the fight for marriage equality at a time when the law was confusing. We advocated for couples that had legally married in Utah after a federal court struck down a state ban, but before the U.S. Supreme Court temporarily halted marriages from taking place. The plaintiffs included Tony Milner and Matt Barraza, who were not only fighting for their marriage to be legally recognized, but also so both men would be recognized as legal parents of their adopted son, Jesse.
We were part of all the group that got married in that crazy December 2013. Well, it's funny because we'd been married 3 different times, and so it was one of those things where we kept joking that we're just going to keep getting married until it's legal. Then there was a lot of confusion in the air whether or not it was going to stick.
It was like a punch to the gut, really, because we were on this high. We were really happy. That was a Friday, I think, and so we were just on cloud 9 over the weekend. And the first thing that we did on Monday was start the process for the second parent adoption for our son Jesse, because only one of us was the legal parent.
And so here, the child that I raised since birth, I had no legal standing with him. And that was scary. That was frightening to know that there are, worst case scenarios that I might not be fully recognized as his parent.
Our main priority was our son. We wanted him to have those protections that come along with us being married.
The legal system is a tough, scary place that's hard to navigate, and so it's fantastic having someone on your side who actually knows the ropes.
They're invaluable. I mean, nobody else is there to do the things that they do, to take the cases that they take. So yeah, I am so thankful that they're here and that they were here to help us when we needed it.
This year, the ACLU of Utah has partnered with the Utah Pride Center to enact policies in schools to protect the rights of transgender students. Our goal is to educate school administrators and to make sure they understand the needs of their entire student population.
I remember the ACLU of Utah actually emailed us. They emailed the program that I was a part of here at the Utah Pride Center. And they said, we're having some cases come in about transgender students and their rights in school facilities. This isn't necessarily our area of expertise. So my involvement with the ACLU has been working with them really for the past, I believe, 6 months, where we've established policies, quintessential policies for transgender students and their rights in schools. Our politicians haven't really come out in support of LGBTQ youth in their careers. And so it's really important that we do have these forces to protect these students because they fear for their lives every single day. I hope that we can continue giving those protections wherever they're needed and ensuring the rights of transgender students. It takes legal knowledge, but it also takes the social knowledge that the Utah Pride Center has. And so working with the ACLU and our organization together, it just creates this powerful force.
Today, the ACLU of Utah continues to grow. This year, we created 3 new staff positions. We hired 4 new people, worked on 7 cases. We monitored 115 legislative bills. We hosted 28 educational presentations and trainings and 25 public events. We have nearly 19,000 Utahns who read our emails, newsletters, and social media posts. We have 6,489 members, people like you who believe that we can have a fair and just Utah. It has been 60 years, and we have never lost sight of our mission. We will always be there to defend civil rights and liberties.
Well, the impact is really to ensure the civil liberties of every single American. Whether that's a transgender student in rural parts of America, or if that's a young girl who is scared right now because of where Roe v. Wade stands, or a young black child who wants to one day fulfill their goals.
Civil liberties includes everybody. So it's always been a very inclusive organization in terms of, it didn't matter if you were Muslim or Catholic or Mormon, it didn't matter if you were white, brown, or black, it didn't matter if you were gay or not. To the American Civil Liberties Union, civil liberties belongs to everybody, and everybody has to be cognizant of it and fight for it.
If we didn't have the ACLU, there would be a lot of people who would feel unable to express themselves, would not know where to turn when their rights were trammeled.
I feel like the role that the ACLU plays in our community and even our nation is just that they're always there to fight the good fight. And it's extremely comforting to know that they were there for us in our time of need.